Now there's the base of the engine rotisserie. That's I don't know what thickness that is, wall thickness that is, but it's 2-inch square tubing. And then I welded wheels on it. I just tacked those or welded those on. So that's pretty flat and square. And I've been working out different ideas of a way to make the pivot for this U-joint. I've had a few different ideas, but one of the things I didn't want to do was weld something on this, because I'm going to want to use this. I want to keep this usable for putting back on that drive shaft and using it someday for a PTO or something. One of the ideas that I had was to take this, and this is a cut-off piece of what the tubes that I made the workhorses out of. This fits over this shaft, the groove part of this shaft. I had this, found this piece here that just almost fits over it, but it's a little tight, and I thought, well, first if I bore this out a little bit on the inside and then heat it up and press it on there, then it'll fit on, and it'll spin with, it'll turn everything. It would press on there tight, fit, and turn on there. But once it doesn't leave a whole lot of metal available once I bore this out a little bit enough, even if I just bored out enough to press fit over this. So like I said, I got this piece here, and then this is a piece of spare 4130 that I got in a kit from Aircraft Spruce, and it fit over the top of that. So my idea was to lock this piece here onto this shaft somehow, and then weld this piece into the upright on the rotator, and then this piece could go through it and it would rotate inside of it. This fits fairly tight over there, but not real tight. And one of the ideas I had for locking this in was to just put it on part way like this, dam this up down here, and then pour lead in there, and the lead would go in around all these grooves and everything, and lock everything together. And then when I wanted to reuse it, all I'd have to do is heat this up and let the lead run back out of it. And that would have worked, and it would work. The other idea I started working on last night, and I put this on the lathe and turned a spot on here for indicator, was to go ahead and put this on like this, just past this, well, somewhere in there, just past those grooves, or those slots, and drill a hole in there and weld a nut on here, and a couple of them around. That's why I put this this mark in here, is just an indicator of where to put those holes, and weld these nuts on, and then use a bolt in there as a lock bolt to lock this in. And then that would have also been a stop for this piece sliding over it. It would have made a nice stop for that, to so it would only go in so far. So anyway, that was another idea. So that was what I was working on last night, and then I had an idea in the middle of the night that maybe if I just make a saddle for this, if I just take this part here, which is a reduced diameter from this portion here, and just make a saddle to fit over it with ears on it, and then I can just split it and clamp it down on here. So that's what I'm working on now. There it went. Okay. Now I got two halves of hole. Yeah. Okay, that fits tighter now. And once, if I wire brush this paint off of here, it'll be a little bit looser, and this will be smoother. It's a pretty smooth surface without that paint on there. So, yeah, okay. That's not too bad a job for a old Jippo logger. Well, I got to looking around for some metal that I could use for tabs to weld onto this this tube. Looking around, I found this piece, which was left over from I built lumber rack for the truck last winter. This is out of the stuff that we salvaged off the old bleachers that were thrown away. And then well, I found that piece, and then I found this this L bracket here, and I'm going to cut one piece or two pieces out of this L bracket, and then I'll cut two pieces, or cut these two legs off of this this piece right here, and they'll work just fine. I didn't have to pick that one up. Now I can throw it down. Didn't let that one fall, so now I can throw it down. Yeah. Well, there's two. I've got these pieces. It'll be this bracket with the wings on it, sitting here on a little table. It's just a piece of 14 gauge steel. It's stuff I salvaged. It actually came with an old excavator that we tore apart, and I cleaned it up to use it for a welding table. And I've got a piece of copper here I put down so that this doesn't stick. This stuff's relatively thin. It probably wouldn't on its own, but it's relatively thin, so just to make sure it doesn't stick to the table, I put this piece of copper down on it. Change things around, and I'm going to put one of those square tubes on the sawhorses and start polishing it up with the wire wheel. Well, it took a while to clean up this tube, the rust off of it, the paint and stuff. But anyway, I got them pretty good. I got enough stock cut. This will be the upright for the front pivot. I took this, laid it out on here with this, and made a mark for the radius of it, and then I took a hacksaw and sawed down to the line in several places and cut it out. And now I'm just taking a half round file and I'll finish it out. I'll go ahead and round it out to get it to fit close enough to weld it in there. Okay, 5-10 minutes worth of filing, and I've actually got that down to where it's pretty good fit for a weldment. It doesn't go all the way down flat to where these ears fit on the post, as if it did that, then I wouldn't be able to get a bolt through it to clamp the top piece down. But it's actually a pretty good fit. By the time I get that welded on there, it's going to be just fine. I brought that post out here and put it on my makeup bench and welded this bracket on. Now the welds could be a little better, but they'll hold. So that's finished up, and that looks pretty good. I needed something to get it to stand off. I laid it flat here on this steel, and I got these two big neodymium magnets that I use to hold the guide on the tubes when I use the plasma torch to cut those off. And so I just set those on this steel plate, and then set this box tubing on there, and that held it off the table a little bit. And by God, did it hold it down. It's all I could do to get it off there. Could have used a little bit more to get it balanced. This side hangs out a little bit more than this side does, but but it's fine for what it is. I'll drill out here on these two brackets on both the top and bottom. I'll drill holes to match here, to put bolts through to hold it down when I clamp that U-joint shaft in there. So anyway, I'm happy with that. Well, there's the front mount. You got the standoff, or the stand part of it, stem, whatever you want to call it, welded in, a little diagonal brace for it. We got the holes drilled to clamp the clamshell on, the bracket on. Well, there's my front rotisserie stand. It's I just squirted some paint on it. We got it sit out here and let the paint set up a little bit, and dry a little bit before we cart it off up to the basement. Here's the front rotator all set up and hooked up to the airframe. We got the driveline shaft here, the U-joint, and it's bolted onto that pin that we built, and there's the mount onto the airframe itself, and our standoff. This drive shaft is clamped in here on the clamps that we made, and they actually tightened down pretty good on that once I got them. With the ears, when it welded on, it kind of followed the curve of this tubing, so they flared out a little bit apart from each other, and when they bolted down and tightened down, it pulled them down, clamped pretty tight on there, so you didn't need any shims in that at all. It works pretty good. Of course, the caster's on the bottom there to roll it around. Still need to do something here. Haven't got that figured out yet. We need to put something on this end of the shaft to use to index it, to turn it. I've got an idea of what to do, but just like all the rest of my ideas, I have all kinds of them, and very seldom wind up with the one I start with. Well, here's my rotisserie setup. This is the front one, which I've already showed. This is clamped onto the firewall mount. You can see the universal joint there from the drive shaft. We've got it clamped on, and that actually clamped on pretty tight, tighter than I thought it would. It still spins freely, but there's not as much play in it as I thought. I've got a bolt in here, and that drive shaft is pinched down on that shaft that I turned down. The mount mounted to the firewall with the standoffs here. So I got 6 inches of standoff off the firewall, and 4 fully cast ring wheels down there. This is the new addition here. This is a spindle off my truck. The unit bearings went out on it, so I put new bearings and stuff in the truck, and this is the old spindle off of it. I cut the old unit bearing hub off of it, and so I need to gonna clean this up a little bit, because the guy that did it beat the crap out of it. This was the plate that the studs, wheel studs, were in. Anyway, I had to turn it down a little bit on the lathe and bore it out a little bit on the lathe to get it to fit on this drive shaft end. And then I took and drilled the spindle in 2 places there, threaded it for a 3/8 inch bolt, and put in to lock it in. And I put just a little piece of copper in there to keep it from damaging the drive shaft, and it'll lock in. The copper's soft enough, then the bolts will put pressure on them and lock in on that. All made out of scrap stuff that we had laying around here, except for the only thing I bought were these tubes here. That's a 5/8 inch 4130 steel, and that's the only thing I bought, other than the wheels on the bottom for the carriages. We bought those at Alaska Industrial Hardware last year when we picked the fuselage up. Well, I've got it all finished now, the rotisserie, it's all hooked up. I took that hub today and took the grinder to it and smoothed out all of the places where it was beat up with a hammer, and all the places that I burred up with the cutting torch there when I cut the bearings off. I leveled the fuselage, and then I drilled a 1/2 inch hole through this tube here, and then I found a pin. This was a leftover from another project, but it's a shaft out of a old outboard motor. So we cleaned it all, the hub all up, and I just squirted some paint on it. Wait for it to dry now. I set the fuselage up so it was level. I put the level actually on that cross seat tube and leveled it up there, but then I put it up here across the front of the airplane, and it's level there too. Put one of these old lug bolt holes in the hub, centered on that post, and drilled the hole out with a 1/2-inch drill bit, and that little shaft fits in there. And so now we've got index holes on 45-degree increments as that goes around. The fuselage now, it's nice because it can be moved around. The front of it here can be moved independently from the rear of it, and it can move it around to give me more floor space in there, or I can move it over closer to the workbench, shorten the distances up between the workbench and the fuselage if I want to, or move it over out of the way. So I can do now I can move it over out of the way like this, and I can get that floor cleaned up, and then move it back over this way and clean up the other side, and move it out if I need out this way farther when I want to work on the tail, and move the tail around over to that side, closer to the workbench or the tools if I need to. It's going to be real nice. Of course, that's what I was working towards now, is I get those floorboards in, and then I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and work underneath the floorboards to put the rudder cables in and stuff, and the control pulleys and stuff like that underneath, and then we can rotate it around the other way to do the top. Anyway, there she is, all nice and pretty, just like somebody intended it to be made that way.